Welcome to a special episode of What I Did Next from A&T Media. I'm Malak Fuad, your host. As part of our collaboration with the Narrative Summit, I'm delighted to be joined today by Rawya Mansour, Chairwoman of RAMSCO Egypt and Oasis Technologies Monaco. Rawya is a pioneer of sustainable development and regenerative agriculture, including shifting away from chemical polymer fertilizers towards green charcoal. In this episode, we'll get into the pivotal moments that led her on this journey, as well as her involvement with the Narrative Summit. But first, I wanted to talk to her about her childhood, growing up as the only girl among four brothers.
I must say it was lots of fun because we had very nice parents, the five of us, and they taught us a lot. But I was a little bit different because I was the girl. So I was spoiled and really not spoiled. So I had to be tough and spoiled at the same time. But what I can say is the experience of growing with boys made me a tough woman.
I'm sure.
I had to be a tough woman.
And where are you in the order of
I'm
children?
number 4.
You're number 4. So you were also one of the younger ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was Ismail, Yusuf, Mohammed, myself, and Yassine.
And Yassine.
Youngest.
Okay. So are you their confidant?
Of some, not of all, but I always, especially after my mother passed away, I tried to be the woman in their lives.
You know what I find really interesting is that a lot of families in Egypt, like your own family, were prominent before 1952, before our first revolution, lost a lot, and then came back. And your family is the epitome of that. That would have been a very difficult time for your family. How did you cope with all of that?
Well, at the beginning, it was very tough. I remember as a child, when my father was nationalized, it was a tough experience for me and for my parents, especially my father and mother, especially that he had to work as an employee in his own company, which was very hard.
Of course.
There was an army officer who became his boss, and he had to act in his own property like he's an employee. So I think it wasn't tough for me as much as it was tough for him. They always tried to provide for us and not make us feel the agony they were passing through. But I remember that my father was a great believer in God, so he knew that he can still do it again. And I remember he was always singing, when he came to pray, when he was hearing that everybody's being nationalized, he used to sing this song, Aklik Menini Batta, that...
أنا فاكرة الأغنية دي.
Yeah. So it was tough times, I must say. My brothers, being boys, they left around 15, 16. They were in Victoria College, and they had to go to the United States. We haven't seen them, so I grew up more with... the beginning, it was Mohammed and myself, because he's the one just on top of me, and then Yassine. Me and Yassine, we used to go to the English Girls' College, and all what they were giving us after the sequestration was 70 pounds. So my mother had to sell a lot of her jewelry.
It was a difficult time.
Very, very difficult time.
But a lot of people surmounted it and came back stronger, which is, I think, the case for you.
Yeah, it's like the proverb, whatever doesn't kill you just makes you stronger.
I want to turn a little bit to your own life. So I know that you married, had children, and began an interior design firm, but you quickly pivoted out of that. Tell me about that.
Well, before I was living in Alexandria. Alexandria was, they used to call it the mermaid of the Mediterranean. It was a lovely city. It was very cosmopolitan. And I must attribute a lot of my success to the school that I went. I was at the EGC. And they taught us there how to perfect everything you do. They taught us a lot of things, and one of which is perfection, and also to feel for others.
This is maybe where your sense of giving back began.
Yeah, no, it
began at home as well.
It began as my father first.
Yeah.
He was he was a very charitable person. He used to give a lot to charity, and I remember as a child, every day we used to have, I don't want to say the unfortunate people standing by the house and calling my father to give them money. So he never went out of the house without having around 20 people around the house to share his wealth with, even when they have sequestrated and nationalized.
Mm-hmm. And tell me a little bit about your interior design business.
So when I got married, I came to Cairo. I discovered that Alexandria, we had a beautiful house. And my mother was always, she used to have cups for uh, flower arrangements, awards
yes.
for flower arrangements. They used to have yearly, and as I told you, it was very cosmopolitan. So every year they used to have a tournament for flower arrangement. And she used to win it every single year. So I used to see her always, doing the flower arrangements, taking care of her house, living in a beautiful house also. So when I came to Cairo, I found that the atmosphere was a little bit different. And so I decided that I wanted to teach people or to work in interior design. So I learned a little bit about interior design, and I traveled to England as I had some difficulties in my marriage, and I went to Sotheby's and Christie's there, and I learned about the decorative arts, and I was published in House and Garden.
They have wonderful programs.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when I came back as an Egyptian, she's in House and Garden, so everybody started commissioning me.
It was a big deal.
Yes, a big deal. And even all the editions were run out. And the man, the man who was selling the magazines was saying, why is everybody asking for this magazine? Since then, I've opened my own interior design office, and I've built and constructed many of the Egyptian most beautiful houses.
And it was mainly residential, not commercial.
It was all residential, but the only commercial, I did 2 commercials. I did the first McDonald's.
Really?
Yes, for my brother.
Of course.
And I did the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the palace of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Okay. Both important important things. I worked at Promo 7 when I first came to Cairo, and my account was McDonald's. So I knew the account very well. Anyway, so tell me, why did you at some point decide that it was time to shift focus? You did this for how long, the interior business?
I did it for around 20 years.
Oh, that long?
Yes.
And you became bored, or you found something else to take your interest?
No, at the time I was very interested, but to tell you the truth, I had a lot of difficulty. I thought, no, God created me maybe for something better than decorating homes. So I was just around the economic crisis, and around 2007, walking in the streets and seeing the people, and especially I wanted to create something to see the people a little bit happier.
You were feeling the difference in society.
I was feeling the difference, and especially when I went to the rural areas, I could see, and the immigration from the rural to the cities and all those shanty homes. So I started reading a lot about environment, and discovered that if I do things for the environment, I could help more people than just doing interior design. Although when I was doing interior design, I used to have around 250 people working. But I thought that the more I read about poverty and about sustainability, I found the solution in sustainability into sustainable development, and decided that I shall specialize in agriculture, especially that my father had graduated from university in Cambridge for agriculture, but he never had the chance to work in agriculture.
I find it very interesting and very admirable that a lady of your position would leave a business that is, attractive, like interior design and surrounding yourself with beautiful things, to go into a business of so much difficulty and necessity, of course, because of our society. What was your driver? Why did you feel this was really important?
It's because my father always, whom I used to share a lot of time with, and we had dual admiration for each other, had always told me that the loaf of bread is the most important issue to have political stability.
So you understood the fundamentals that needed to be solved.
Exactly, for the food security.
So tell me a little bit about how you got into sustainable agriculture. How did you begin to work in this area?
So I started by reading a lot, as I told you, about sustainability and about sustainable development, about poverty. And at the time, it was called the MDG. They wanted to reach the MDG goals by 2015. So I felt, and they never reached it, 2015. So now it's the SDGs. So I hope they're not just changing letters.
Keeps moving.
It keeps moving to letters without actual. And then while I was reading a lot about sustainability, I read a lot also about climate change. So it became like a passion or a thrive or a desire to find solutions for poverty. Especially, I was a member, or I can't remember where in Jordan, and I thought that green economy is the solution. And I saw King Abdullah of Jordan saying that the only solution for poverty would be the key would be in the green economy.
At the time, was it an area that attracted a lot of attention, or were you pioneering it in Egypt?
I was pioneering. At that time, everybody was talking about industry.
Yes.
And the importance of the industry. So I used to attend conferences and say, why aren't you talking about agriculture? They had it like on the sidelines. But I must say, and I became into an environment activist, and I started reading a lot. So I found the solution would be into creating zero waste eco villages together with ecotourism, and what I do is called regenerative agriculture.
And when you talk about these issues, is it that you have land that you have converted for use in the sustainable way, or are you creating programs that can be used in different areas around the country?
What I really specialized in, because at the time I wanted to take land, so I went to the Minister of Agriculture, and he gave me a very small piece of land that I rented. It's all self-financed for in the research center,
like a pilot program.
And at the time, I was also traveling a lot to France, so I got acquainted with companies there that were doing something called Pro Natura. It was an association, and another field which is the biochar, which is the green charcoal.
They're quite advanced in France for these things.
They were very advanced.
Yeah.
But then when I came back to Egypt, and I got like specialists from France, it was called the super vegetable gardens that they implemented in Senegal. So I got the specialists from France, and they used to use something, to use less water, because the challenge with planting the desert, I didn't want to go to the delta, and this was the main misunderstanding between me and the Al-Faqariya al-Aqsaru Faqran. And that the delta is already polluted, and at the same time we have the high rise of the sea in Alexandria.
Yes.
So I thought we should go a little bit further down to like Luxor, Aswan.
And to populate new areas maybe as well.
Because if those are flooded around, I read, according to the World Bank, 6 million people are going to be homeless. So what I did then, I took this piece of land and I turned it into my personal R&D, research center. So when I got those French people, we started the first pilot was in Kalabsha in Aswan. And we were able to plant at 45 degrees and have zucchinis in the desert with the water. But the professor that I have, that was working with me here in Egypt, he's an Egyptian, told me they are using polymers, and polymers are very dangerous.
Are those pesticides?
No, polymers is like, what you find in the Pampers to absorb the water, so you lose less water.
Oh.
So I decided to use biopolymers.
I see.
And I started working on the R&D with the biopolymer. And the more I read and the more I wanted to specialize, is I changed from the chemical fertilizers to the organic fertilizers and to the biopesticides.
And of course, it's cheaper for farmers not to be using pesticides as well.
The pesticides, first of all, they pollute the aquifers.
Yeah.
Second of all, they're very expensive, and especially after the Ukraine war. And they use more water.
Of course.
And they pollute.
Of course.
So I got to learn two things from France. It's the biochar, which is, I invested there in a company that had a biochar machine. But when I got them to Egypt, they told me you have to pay 100,000 euros more to get the machine. I said, why? He said, because we have to, make it cooler or something. I said, I don't buy a car. For the weather. I said, I don't buy a car without tires. So I started doing my own biochar machine. and I applied for a patent in Egypt. And
So you've made it here.
the first one was here. So I had a university professor who made a very small one, and we created the biochar.
Yeah.
And the biochar is one of the only ways that it is called green charcoal. It is one of the only ways to mitigate and to adapt to climate change.
So you've become a scientist in your new job.
This was very
amazing.
Yeah, it was very. I felt like I'm Einstein, the crazy scientist. And so we imported the biochar from France. I spoke to the minister. And after that, we started producing our own biochar.
And is it for use in Egypt only, or is it now going to be sold to other countries?
No, it's used in desert areas.
In Africa. I know you're a big champion of African agriculture.
No, I haven't still extended out of Egypt, but
it's an option.
It's an option. It's an option, and it's a solution.
And it's a solution, exactly.
It's the solution.
I'm interested in this because, the only way future for any of our countries with all the global warming is to find sustainable solutions. And you seem to be at the cutting edge of this now in Egypt.
I had two challenges that I was tackling in the desert: is the availability of water.
Yes.
And we do not use Nile water because it has a lot of waste, of agricultural waste. So we work with the underground water. And I can proudly say that I have completely replaced the chemical fertilizers and the pesticides with my biotechnology.
One of the things you've always talked about is the necessity of having people leave the cities and go back to the land. And of course, in Egypt, we've always been an agricultural country. This is a very worthy mission. We have overcrowding in all our cities. We have so much poverty, and we need to repopulate our country. How are you doing that in terms of a practical way?
Well, I haven't done that. Okay, I haven't done that because that is the job of the government.
Yes.
But I would say when I was reading a lot prior to 2007, the rate of shanty homes in Cairo is 60%.
Yeah.
So, and unfortunately, with the Nasser's while he was ruling, it became the 5 acres. So now, with the people who had 5 acres, now they have like 20 grandchildren. So he encouraged people to travel to the cities, and the cities weren't prepared for this kind of immigration. So they used to build houses without any infrastructure, and so they polluted a lot of the delta.
Yeah.
This is why I'm thinking of going out to the desert. I hope the desert is not going to be polluted.
Yeah. And
start planting completely organic. The advantages are that you're using 30% less water than the normal. And with the drip irrigation, you are saving 60% water. So, and we do have a big problem of water scarcity.
Of course.
Especially that we're under the line of poverty.
And also with the Ethiopian
dam issue and all this. I think that going bio, and which I have been doing now for the past 15 years, now I have around 13 acres, which is my R&D. So what I'm not a vegetable seller. People take me as I'm selling vegetables, but I'm a biotechnology acquirer. And those 13 acres, I employ around 50 people with the full value chain, and especially with women who are rural women who are really under the line of poverty.
Yeah.
So I think what really has to be done is to go to the desert and create rural development.
It's interesting because I know that we are a huge exporter of vegetables as a country, and fruit.
Yes.
And obviously Europe, America are wanting more organic. So this is a win-win for the country.
Yes.
We increase our exports and we provide organic.
And it will not take a long time to do.
Yeah.
When I did my studies, because I didn't tell you what was the pivot point of the change that I did, was in 2007 when the food prices went up and the media started attacking the private sector. I was totally offended.
Yes.
So I was a member of the IDSC, which is together with UNDP, with the Prime Ministry, to find solutions for poverty. I said, why do you allow the media to attack the private sector so much? So he said, do you have a solution? I said, yes, my solution is in recycling the agri-waste. And I did a study there, and I discovered that we have 36 million tons of agri-waste that can be used to plant 1.5 million acres in the desert. And at the same time, this would employ around 10 million people if you do around 360 villages. This won't take a long time.
But this hasn't been done.
This hasn't been done.
Yeah.
You know, people are two types.
Yes.
I think there are people who create. So you dream, and then it leads you to creation.
To do it.
To creation and to innovation.
Yes.
But other people are administrators. I am not an administrator. Yeah. So this is maybe why I haven't, and it took me such a long time. But I think I was losing a lot of money from myself, from my own money. But now I must say that I am happy because we are starting to make profits, and I'm sharing 10% of my profits with the people.
It's wonderful. It seems to me that as a creator, as someone who innovates, which is the role you see for yourself, you need a partner who is an administrator. So this is a natural role for government, especially if you want to reclaim land and begin a new project of this kind. So let's hope that this is a call to action.
I hope so. That this will be a call to action, and especially now that the problem with chemical fertilizers after the Ukraine war, the prices are very high, and it also pollutes. And the second thing is that you are saving water, and you are eating healthy. You are not we're using what they used to burn to pollute.
Exactly.
So you're sparing the pollution. With the chemical fertilizers, they also turn the gas we have into chemical fertilizers. So instead of turning it into chemical, you'll export it. It will bring more money for the government.
Yeah. Let's turn to the role of women in society in Egypt specifically.
Yes.
We all know that women form a very, very important part of our economy.
Yes.
And they get very little attention for that.
Yes.
How do you see this area as growing in the future?
I don't want to offend men, but
it's fine. We can offend men.
Okay, but I think women are more three-dimensional.
Yes.
You know, they see things more at a three-dimensional. And especially rural women, I think they are really the ones suffering. So if giving them jobs, and mainly in what I was succeeding in doing, and this is what maybe got me the prize for, apart from climate change, is giving equal pay as the man. As when I first started, the woman used to take half, and giving them also insurance.
Yes,
they weren't insured, so they're all insured, and also they have medical insurance. So I think all this enables also the young women from early marriages. Because why do we have early marriages? Because the father cannot still support. So he wants to marry his daughter at a young age. By the time she's 20, she has around 4 kids that without a husband that she has to support. And 50% of the farmers are supporting women of the farming power.
Yes.
So I think rural development is the key. Is the key to improving the whole situation for the whole of Africa. But one of the main problems we have in Africa, not even in Egypt, is the access to land. Women do not have access to land.
They're prevented from having access to land.
Yes, they have access to land.
Yes. If you were in charge for one day of Egypt, let's use Egypt as a benchmark, as a pilot, what would be the first thing of these initiatives that you would enact, that you would think that would have the biggest reach?
I would definitely go for the zero waste eco villages, definitely, where everything is recycled. Start planting the desert for food security.
Would you incentivize people to move there? Is that how it would work?
I think you could give them free land.
Free land.
Free land. And then if they prove after 5 years that they have planted it, then okay. It's like giving the students, they used to give the students free land, but they don't give them any financial support.
Yes.
So
he couldn't do anything with it.
He couldn't do anything with it.
Yes.
So they must have financial support. They must have access to land, and there must be capacity building, and to enable them also to take their products to the market.
I wonder if there's a role for fintech here, the financial services that now rely so much on technology. Maybe there's a way of bridging between, fintech companies and having this actually get created? Maybe this is a private enterprise scenario and not a public-private connection.
Yes. Last year, I had some people coming from Sudan, as my father was working from, and he told me they're trying to connect them to make a sort of a cooperation.
Exactly.
Yeah, but this has to have also capacity building.
Yes.
Because quality control is quite a big issue,
Of course.
especially with the brand that I'm doing. The quality is excellent.
What is the importance of Africa? I know you've been a big champion of Africa. Tell me a little bit about how you see the continent evolving. I know that generally it's a continent that's been ignored for decades, if not centuries.
Yes.
Unless it was to take minerals out. How do you see it shifting now?
Well, I see now all the eyes are on Africa, and I see a lot of fintech for
African businesses.
For African businesses and for IT technology.
Yes.
But there isn't a lot of biotechnologies.
Right.
Like, for instance, for my field, I do not find a fund. I do not find... But Africa is a young continent. In spite of that, we still import our food. So I think this is the biggest employment branch would be in agriculture. So you will stop poverty. You will stop immigration to Europe. They create those villages. So I think there must be a lot of development or world agreement to use those to develop those countries through agriculture.
I think also, I mean, from what I read, there are so many people who are originally African, have traveled, lived in different countries in Europe and America, and a lot of young entrepreneurs are moving back to their countries and trying to create ecosystems in different areas. And a lot are moving into anything to do with IT, with AI. There's a lot of momentum, I find,
yes, there's a lot
behind the African idea.
Yeah, a lot of funds are being made now for IT, but not for biotechnologies. And it's mainly all, like WhatsApp.
Communications,
but not for agriculture.
Right.
And not for sustainable development.
Of course. But it's an area that needs attention.
Exactly.
What was your involvement with COP27? I know that for you that was a turning point as well, right?
I have attended in COP20, in COP12.
From 12?
From 12. I've attended, and it was in Copenhagen. And it was the area that when I found the invitation, it was sent to my brother and he gave it to me. I went there to Copenhagen, and it was the session I was on was called "To Be or Not to Be" of Shakespeare.
Yes.
Apparently Shakespeare had there he made the theater, so it was
in Copenhagen.
In Copenhagen,
I didn't know that.
So it was to be or not to be. And I had with me the head of Coca-Cola, the chairman, and the Chinese minister. At the beginning, it was very, the thing with the COPs is that they really make presidents and kings travel all around the world, waste their time, and really no solution has come out.
It needs to be more grassroots.
It needs to be grassroots.
Yes.
And what I wanted to do with the COP27, with my experience, was to show them a small village that I tried to take in close to Sharm el-Sheikh, but then they told me the land is owned by I don't know.
It couldn't happen.
It couldn't happen. Although, if I would did that, it would have been the first zero waste eco lodge or what that any of those presidents would have
seen in real life.
Yeah, I would have done I would have executed what I talk about to see, because when you see it, you believe it.
It would have taken your R&D to the natural conclusion.
But I had a lot of difficulties. So what I must say with Lamia Camel, what we did the narrative together, was that I was maybe one of the only women who was there talking about sustainability, and there was a lot of highlight put on me by...
Yes. Was that the beginning of the connection with the Narrative Summit?
Exactly. Because when I wanted to attend the COP27 at that time, talking about rural development, which is only the key to climate change and combating climate change. So Lamia, being a PR, she sort of highlighted what I did.
She understood it as well.
She understood it as well. She's maybe one of the few who understood what I'm doing. And so since then, we started knowing each other's and talking about we want to take Egypt, to rebrand Egypt for the foreigners, because what they think about is the pyramids. Egyptian is a pyramid and a camel, but we wanted to rebrand them and show them that the private sector has a big role into the advancement of Egypt. Not only the private sector, but also the cultural center, like we had with us last year in Somabay. So Lamia we decided, my brother, Sir Mohammed Mansour, became the chairman, and he got some of his influential friends to attend. So this highlights more of a world light on Egypt.
More of a bigger lens on the country.
Exactly, because especially that all the media is owned by the, is not owned by the Arabs. So this is a sort of come to see it, you believe it.
Yeah.
And since then, we've had many people come into Egypt, and when I saw them back again in Europe, it was a big event.
I also think that, in the last 5-6 years, there's been a breaking of the dam in a way, in the sense that we are now being seen for who we are.
Exactly.
There's no more, I feel, in my world, I feel it with my work, that there's no more this condescension towards Arabs.
No, there isn't a condescension towards Arab, not only because of their economical
power,
status,
power,
but also because when you come and see now, I must thank really the infrastructure in Egypt. Now we're somewhere else.
Absolutely.
We're somewhere else. Even I think we have a better infrastructure than what they have in Europe.
I agree.
And then with also our history, with our weather, with our...
Yeah, we have a lot of selling points.
Yeah, we have a lot to offer in Egypt. And also the human warmness of the Egyptian.
Yes.
You cannot find in many places.
And I feel in Egypt, especially in the last few years, there have been so many events on the social calendar, cultural calendar, that are attracting people from abroad that are not the traditional touristic things.
Exactly.
We have art, we have food.
Yes.
This is bringing a different type of people to the country, and it's return people.
Civilizations are measured by the food you have.
Yes.
By the amount of, they usually measure the wealth of a country by the amount of recycled products that you do.
Yeah.
So whenever I go, I have a friend of mine, she's German. We always celebrate. I got her the first time for the RDG. She comes every year, and now she's become an ambassador for Egypt.
It's amazing.
She's a princess, Princess Heidi, and she's an ambassador for Egypt.
It's incredible.
So the amount, the thing is, we're trying to use our own social friends. In Europe, in the United States, to come and see what Egypt is about. We're not the camel and the pyramids. We have much more to offer.
Absolutely. And what I'm particularly proud of is the fact that so many of these initiatives are homegrown now. We're not being told or advised by people who know better, the West. And traditionally, we were always colonized. We were always told what to do. We are the ones who are making decisions. We are the ones who are beginning this movement.
2009, I remember there was an African conference in Egypt, and maybe I was the only one there with somebody from the United Nations. And the gentleman who was speaking, he was Dutch. He said, the desire or the solutions for your country must come from within, not from outside.
Absolutely. What do you want to achieve with this Narrative Summit of 2025?
With this Narrative Summit 2025, I want to have more exposure. Not only England, but to have all the European countries and to have the United States and to have influential people, because all the people who came to visit us as a family or other privates, they went back and they became the ambassadors for our country. So what narrative is we're trying to do is to rebrand Egypt as one of the leaders in the Arab world and Africa, and also to encourage investment into many fields, like the field I'm doing, into agriculture, into into industries, into
and tourism, tourism as well.
Tourism. Now we have this Ras Al Hikma.
Yes,
everybody knows about the North Coast.
Yes,
in Egypt.
Yes, and we just want FDI, just generally into the country.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you've received many awards over the years for your work. If you were to highlight 2 or 3 that really stand out for you in terms of importance and recognition, which ones would they be?
The first one would be the BPW with the UN Women. That was in 2017. And with my friend Asfour, we were able to get 120 countries to celebrate for the first time business professional women in an Arab country. And we had around 200 people or 300 people to come from all different, in spite of the challenges of trying to.
And this was done here?
This was done here. And I had a very big, and I was offered the reward for excellence by the UN and by the business professional women for also tackling the problem of climate change.
That's very impressive.
Yes.
And I know you've received recognition for your work in Africa. Didn't you?
Yes, I must tell you that, because that was a very funny thing. I was speaking to a very close friend and saying, I'm fed up. Nobody understands what I'm doing. I'm just spending my time and money, and nobody wants to
get involved.
And I'm the only one who's really involving myself in all that with my time and with my money. So just as I look, I found you have been awarded the Female African Leader, but it wasn't by nomination. So I had to make a full campaign, all by myself, trying, and then all the Egyptian women were fighting with me also.
Yeah,
so it
on
was
your
a fight
side
between me and the Nigerian.
Yes.
And
and you won.
I won, and I went and received my award from South Africa. The last time I had an award from CIB, I said, I have all the awards to fill up a wall, but I would need somebody to show me the money.
Exactly. Well, maybe they'll hear this interview.
I hope so.
And you also, highlighted the area that you would like to work on.
Yeah.
If we can do it.
So actually, this will help ecotourism.
Yeah.
Because ecotourism is a new field of tourism.
And more and more people want to travel in this way.
Exactly. Because now
they want experiences.
They want experiences with the desert, experiences with retreats, eating healthy food,
Absolutely.
no pollution.
And in Egypt, Siwa is a good role model for this.
Yeah, Siwa is a good role model. Yeah. There are many role models. But what I wanted to do is to unite regenerative agriculture with ecotourism.
With an ecotourism.
Yeah.
And this would be a big selling point for the tourist as well.
Exactly.
It could be an activity for them to get involved in.
Exactly.
It's a nice idea. I'd like to finish with this fun lightning round.
Yes.
I don't want you to think too much.
Okay.
Just say what comes to your mind.
Okay.
All right? So my first one is group projects or individual achievements?
For me, it was individual achievements. I would love to have a group project, but maybe I was too selfish. I don't want anybody to mess what I'm doing because it's very dear to my heart.
Or you had a vision.
Or I had a
vision. You wanted to do it in your way.
Yes.
But presumably, the projects you're talking about would need to be done
they need
in a committee
they need
form.
It's not a personal project.
If you had to choose another profession rather than what you're doing, what would it be?
I think I have it.
So for me, for example, being a mother, but you are that.
Yeah, I have it.
I would have become either a lawyer or an architect. Completely different to what I'm doing, but I like them. I like those industries.
I would be maybe a fashion designer.
Fashion designer, nice. What is your favorite activity?
My favorite activity is checking on my vegetables and my farmers.
And what do you plant?
I plant 30 vegetables. You find them in all the supermarkets.
Yeah. And you go yourself and you like to keep track of it all.
I like to keep track, but I follow up on daily basis with them. Yeah.
I like that.
Because I travel a lot, so sometimes it's by Zoom, and I tell them, show me the pictures. I need to see the vegetables.
I need to see my vegetables.
And then I can decide what they should be.
I like that.
Yeah.
What's your least favorite activity?
My least favorite activity is sewing.
Sewing?
Yeah.
Why? Did you find yourself having to do that sometimes?
No, never.
Okay.
But I thought it was... And also maybe doing, like a party organizer.
Oh.
I think that's a hectic job.
That's a difficult job.
Yeah.
Because I think the client is never satisfied.
He's never satisfied, and you have to do it on a daily basis.
That's right. Yeah. And you deal with difficult clients.
Yes, exactly.
Which is not fun. Okay, I'm going to say a statement and you finish it. I have a hard time.
I have a hard time convincing people about what I'm doing.
I'm surprised by that because you make very convincing arguments.
Yeah, but
you want them to show you the money.
no, I want them to show the money, and I think also this, chemical fertilizers and those F1 seeds it's a big battle that I cannot.
People are still relying on all of these items. Yeah.
The money maker.
Last question. I get joy from
Seeing my friends, communicating, and having mind challenges, and being challenged. And I have fun by spending time and laughing with my friends.
Very nice. One last thing. What is next for you?
Next for me is, God knows, but next for me is doing my first zero waste
village. So you have it in mind.
I bought the land. I'm still waiting to have a pilot with all my machines, with all with ecotourism combined with regenerative
I think that's very exciting.
Agriculture.
I look forward to seeing that.
I hope so.
Will it be near Cairo?
Yes.
Good. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.